Welcome back. Two captains of industry, and still with me in studio is Deepak Nagar. He's national chairman at Grant Thornton South Africa. Deepak, let's look at your growth in corporate South Africa. Right at the top of the show, I had said that you were Grant Thornton's first black managing partner. What does that mean to you? Is it something that needs to be stated?
It's something that needs to be stated from a market perspective in terms of if it's a carrot to dangle out there for all the non-whites out there that are looking for success and saying, can it be achieved? So from that perspective, yes. But it's certainly not a chord that I like to overplay.
It's not something that you like to overplay. Is it a label, let's call it that has at all affected or impacted your approach to a business and your leadership strategy?
No, not at all. My strategy is to say, I have a band of partners behind me. We have a strategy that we've got to implement. That's the vision we've created, and that's the direction we're moving in, no matter who the person is or what the color of that person is. So
let's set your view then on BEE and affirmative action as it's currently in play in South Africa.
Well, I'm a believer in BEE in terms of from the perspective of ensuring that we give opportunity to the people that are out there. And if we look at our membership body, SAICA, they have a Tutuka bursary fund, etc. in terms of trying to attract these people to the profession to say, okay, here's a profession that can contribute to the economy itself. So it's not just about doing this for the sake of it. There's merit behind it in terms of contribution to the wider economy itself as well.
Yeah, this is, within a very interesting time right now. We've had Nedbank Chairman Roel Khoza and his comments recently about a strange breed of leaders who appear incapable of dealing with the demands of modern day governance and leadership, really causing quite a stir in the marketplace. I mean, what role do you see yourself playing beyond affirmative action in actually grooming a new generation of leaders and a new generation of managers out there?
Well, I think it's not just South Africa, but I think across the world we've seen a level of moral degeneration in society itself. And I think as leaders, it is up to us to ensure that we instill the right ethical values and the moral culture back into society, so we set the example and the tone back where it should be.
Yeah, in terms of setting that tone, a lot of focus would be placed on corporate culture. I mean, what's your hope in terms of the kind of corporate culture you're engendering right now within, or beginning to engender within Grant Thornton? Well,
it starts with honesty. My firm belief is that, if one is honest with the people that you lead, in return they'll be honest to you, so that you never encounter a situation where something occurs that you're not aware of. You would have got to give the opportunity to the people out there to say, look, we live in tough times, but be honest with us. Let us help you through these tough times.
Yeah, because you've been part of this Grant Thornton culture for a very long time. As I said earlier, 18 years at the company. You've made managing partner within 11 years and 7 months after having completed your traineeship at the company as well. So it's been a long road, but it's been a pretty straight road as well. Does it speak to your views on dedication and loyalty as well, or is it just a matter of the way things played out?
I suppose, when one looks at it back over time, certainly the effort that I've put in over the years and the dedication in terms of the time and the effort I've put in certainly paid its dividends. And again, it's the message out there to the people coming into the profession that, you put your time in, the rewards are there.
Are there any regrets that you have in terms of sticking to one company from the time, you graduated to now? Or is there anything you would change having moved down this line?
Well, it's interesting, and I often get asked that question. And the funny answer is, it's actually no. For the very simple reason, I suppose, is that every time I achieved the milestone and thrived, I got thrown another challenge and into another opportunity. So that made life interesting for me, I guess. And, for the part that I've sort of been onto, I've been lucky that I've had the opportunities that I've had.
Is there any fear lingering in the background that there's opportunity outside of the Grant Thornton box that you might have missed?
Not at all, simply because I see the opportunity on the horizon as I take the firm forward.
Yeah, well, I've been reading that you've always had a burning desire to qualify as a chartered accountant, so the focus has always been there. Some, though, would say, really? Really, a chartered accountant? How far back was this passion ignited?
Oh, you really want to know? Standard 6.
Really?
It was very interesting, is that I loved accounting and always did, and I had an affinity to maths as well. And if you look at the BCom degree, the entrance requirement is actually maths, not accounting. And in my younger days, in order to earn some pocket money, my uncles had some retail businesses. So they were clothing stores in the center CBD of Durban. I used to work there on a Saturday morning, shop from 8 o'clock in the morning till 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And I used to see this incredible deal happening, you know, almost like a barter transaction. You hand a guy what he wants, and he gives you money in return. And I said, this is amazing. How does this work, you know? And as I sort of had more opportunity in my uncle's businesses, I got to monitoring the till, supervising the till, and actually counting the day's takings. You know, so that exposed me even further to business itself, you know, and where the relevance of maths and accounting came into a business world.
Yeah. Looking at it, I mean, that answers my next question, because I was going to ask to what extent your family history and upbringing had a bearing on your personality and ambition. So one can only assume a great deal then.
Yes, absolutely, a great deal.
Okay, well, is that the key to success? I mean, not everyone is as focused and dedicated and knowing, you know, what they want to be from the word go. So does that mean until you do have that focus, you're pretty much going to be, blowing tumbleweed in the wind?
Well, you know, the key ingredient is to ensure that, you know, if you're undecided of what you want to do, it's important to understand the business environment that you're trying to get into and also the sector you're trying to get into. So, for example, if somebody says accounting, I like accounting, but what is it about? How do I know I want to be a chartered accountant? Well, there's programs that we offer. So we generally have every year grade 9s come into our organization for a couple of days and, you know, bring a work child to work there as well. You know, it gives them the opportunity to experience what the profession is about, what accounting is about, and it's more than just number crunching. When people see that, generally they say, okay, that is the career for me. Yeah. You know, I guess similar with other professions, you know, one's got to ensure that one actually gets into the heart and meat of that organization to understand what that career is about before just launching into it.
So it's all about that exposure. What's the greatest lesson you've ever learned in pursuing this career of your dreams?
You've got to ensure that you get the balance right from day one.
Balance. So let's move on to balance. I mean, how effective are you in actually balancing a work and home life? Because, you know, talking to many CEOs, it's a pretty big challenge getting that balancing act right. So just how much of a challenge has it been for you?
Well, for me personally, my family is the motivating factor. You know, seeing my wife and my 2 young kids, they what motivate me to go to work every day. What I tend to do, I'm fastidious about not working on weekends, where I'm able to avoid it. Naturally, there are exceptions to that rule. I'm fastidious of ensuring that I spend time with my children after work, but also during the school holidays. You know, I work hard, but similarly, I sort of play hard with the kids as well. One's got to be dedicated to doing that. One's got to have drive and ambition to ensure that you structure your diary to say, no, this is how it will be done. So that's why I actually encourage my partners, whenever there's a swimming gala for their child, a poetry evening, etc., that they do attend it. Because no client can be more important than sacrificing that once-off opportunity.
I know a lot of employees out there watching the program would be thinking, I hope that my employer is actually listening to this. I mean, what do you do in your free time? Aside from spending time with the family, how do you unwind and relax, get away from a mind that's focused on numbers and driving business and strategy?
Well, thankfully that we have a maid to look after our kids so that, you know, we're able to sneak out, my wife and I, to a movie whenever we can. Or sometimes it's not a movie, it's just taking a drive, having dinner together, etc. Yeah. Most times, generally, you know, I love spending time with the kids, you know, and watching them grow and nurture, etc. as well. And for me, that's the most peaceful time for me, actually spending time with my kids.
How do you handle pressure? Whether it be pressure on the home front or the work front?
Well, I tend not to use the word, I tend not to think of the word, and I actually ignore it. Simply because when one looks at life, you know, and the lesson I've taught my sort of staff as well, number one priority is always health. Because if you have healthy staff, you have productive staff. You know, so from my perspective, I always ensure that pressure leads on to bad health. One's got to ensure that you dedicate time to your staff, that they see the leader of the firm giving time to ensuring that staff are healthy.
This kind of translates over to a principle that you hold, and that's the principle of making a difference to other people's lives out there.
Absolutely. You know, in Grant Thornton, we have a philosophy or an acronym called EDIMAD. Every day I make a difference. You know, and that's the philosophy I lead by, and that's the philosophy I instill into my staff, and in fact into my family as well. You know, there are challenges and opportunities that I see on the work front that I try and relay to my kids as well.
Okay, well, who's been your greatest inspiration, and what's pushed you?
My father and my mother.
Okay.
It sounds like a cliche, your parents, but when I look at the family history, and one never tends to forget the family history, And that's the most important thing that drove my ambition and my success over the years.
Okay, well, of course, you know, with all you've achieved, many sit back and hold you as their role model. What advice do you have for other South Africans out there wanting to achieve their goals?
Well, firstly, I would say, you know, one's got to be very careful with the career they choose. But when one does choose a career, ensure that it's something that you love doing. But when you do get into the organization, make sure it's something where you can make a difference every day. No matter how small it is, making a difference does count.
And, you know, does it make sense to change your career path once you're, you know, you're already in it? I mean, what's your philosophy on that? Because it's one thing thinking you know what you want to do, and another thing it changing 5 years down the line.
Well, you know, there's an old saying called, the only constant is change. You know, somebody can ask me, will you be in this job for the next 5 years? Will you be in the audit firm in the next 5 years? I can't answer that. You know, it just depends on the day and the time and another opportunity that presents itself, and one could change their career path.
So moving forward, what is it, you know, in terms of a legacy that you hope to leave behind?
A legacy that says, you know, not just been there, done that, but made a difference to the lives of the people that worked for the organization and their broader families.
Let's leave it there. Thanks so much, Deepak, for joining us today. Deepak Nagar, of course, is National Chairman at Grant Thornton South Africa.